Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Kalayim Pedig Tes Halacha Aleph. We are learning today Daf Ayin Zayin. We left off on Daf Ayin Vav Amid Beis, 3 lines before the bottom of the Amid, right? We're dedicating this class with a 4 Shalema to Rudi Rachamim ben Oreita Zahava, and we're going to begin with Marasayin. So when the Mishnah mentioned that shirayin, that the Gemara said is silk, which looks like linen for those who are not familiar with silk, and kolach machloikis, whatever kolach meant, whatever kolach means, is similar to wool. Really, midoiraisa, there is no problem putting shirayin that looks like linen with wool. There's no problem making a garment with a combination of kolach and linen. But the Mishnah says it's asur mepnei marasayin. Again, just to repeat that the Tur, and because of it, the Shulchan Aruch, they explicitly say that now that shirayin, when they speak about silk, is a lot more known. It's matzui beinenu. No one confuses shirayin with linen, and therefore one is allowed to make a garment from silk and wool. Not even asur mepnei marasayin. But anyways, the Mishnah says it's asur mepnei marasayin. Rav makes his famous statement that we'll have here in the bottom of Ayin Vav Amid Beis, that kol shuhu asur mishum maras ha'ayin or mipnei maras ha'ayin afilu b'chadrei chadarim is asur. Now one would think that only when you're doing something in an exposed area is there an issue of maras ha'ayin. Maras ha'ayin is not chshad. Chshad means someone is going to suspect that you're violating a mitzvah. Maras ha'ayin means someone will learn from you that this is permitted when they misunderstand what you're doing, and they're going to do something prohibited and think that it's permitted based on your behavior. That's maras ha'ayin. You would think that if you're doing it in private, there's no issue. So Rav holds that even if you're doing it in your utmost private quarters, it still will be prohibited. We have a similar sugya that we're going to have in the opening of today's daf. We have it in Bavli. Here, the Gemara is actually going to point out that there are 6 but Mishnayos and Braisos. There are 6 works of Tanoim. There are 6 halachas that we find from the era of the Tanoim that contradict the law of Rav. We cannot reconcile it. Just a fact. And for us to know that even though there are 6 Tanoim that apparently argue with Rav, the halacha is like Rav. And as we have sometimes words in the Bavli that Rav Tanuhu Upalig, even though Rav was from the beginning of the era of the Amoraim, but Rav also was able to, and here not only was he able to against 1, against 6, and the halacha is indeed like Rav. That will be fascinating. Now, we're going to learn a little bit more details about, when the Gemara, we learned yesterday that not only does the Torah say Lo Silbash, the Torah also says the words in Kedoshim Lo Yala Alecha. So even though it's more than just putting on a garment, even draping is prohibited, but the issue is only putting it on you. Having shatnez under you is permitted. And we're going to learn a lot of limitations to that. In other words, if you have a hard, let's say, carpet, and you're not directly touching it with the bottom of your feet, you're wearing shoes, for example, that's important, like the Mishnah says, then it's allowed to be under you, and even there'll be a lot of limitations to that heter. We're going to learn about what a person needs to do if they discover that they are wearing shatnez on the street. Do they have to disrobe, or will they be allowed to continue wearing it until when they get into a private place? Right, the concept of kavod habriyos, that according to some versions in Gersois is called kavod harabim. Interesting expression, because kavod harabim, like in this question of am I chayiv to disrobe in public, there is my human dignity, and then there's the rabbim's human dignity. According to the girsa that gadol kavod habriyos, right, that Yehudoiche as loisase sha'achas, as we'll see what that means. It's not what people think it means. Or Gavel Kavoid Harabim. We'll get to that when we learn the Gemara. We're going to see a little bit more details of Ein Arai Likalayim. There's no permit of casually wearing kalayim, even if it's only a casual moment of dress. It's also going to be equally prohibited. And if we'll get far enough, we're going to learn some rules regarding the kohen's leaving of the Beis Hamikdash and returning, of course, connected to him wearing big day kahuna, but whether he has to only do a kiddush adayim v'raglayim, when he comes back into the Makam HaMikdash, whether he might even have to also go to the mikvah when he comes back to the Makam HaMikdash, and much more. And let's dive right into it again. Daf Ayin Vav Amid Beis, 3 lines before the bottom of the Amid. After the Gemara explained Shiroyin or Shirayin is silk, and Kolach, according to the Rashbag, that it's some sort of woolly substance, like we said, that has some sort of golden look that grows on the rocks right near the water, or something else, that they are not. Shiroyin is not linen. Kolach is not wool. Nevertheless, Asurim epnei maraso ayin. Okay, so here we have some kolach over here. Taka, interesting, a good picture. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Amar, and I want you to know that whenever we have something that Chazal said we may not do, because it gives the wrong appearance, also to be medaik, it's not maris einayim, because when people look properly, they wouldn't make a confusion. But people look only with one eye. That's the problem. Maris ayin. So koshu asur b'pras ayin, says Rab, afilu b'chadri chadaram asur. It's asur even in your most private chamber. Really, in the Rishonim, we have two different understandings of why. Either because if you will do it in private, you might end up doing it in public, or because there's no private place. Even if you are in a location that you think no one is looking in there, or there are no spectators, you never know. Like Shlomo HaMelech says, right? Even the walls have ears. Someone might end up seeing you b'chadri chadar. Okay, now let's go to the top of Daf Ayin Zayin. Again, we're going to have 6 halachas that contradict this rule. Number 1, it's a statement. Masnisa, the following Braisa Pligal Rav, contradicts this rule of Rav. Says the Braisa, Pishtan Shetzeva Becheres, if you have linen that was colored with a black dye, look inside the top Marav Fuldam, Bacheres, Kamoy Charta di Ush Chepei, shoemakers blackening. Back in the Braisa, Yasam Imeno Imra. Mifursama, don't make a thick threaded border for a linen garment. Guys, we just learned yesterday that normally linen is not dyed. And wool, not only is wool dyed, but many wools naturally, if it comes from a black sheep, is black. So if a person would want to dye the hem of their linen garment, even though the threads are made out of linen, the threads of the hem, don't darken them with a black dye, because people will think, like I just mentioned, linen normally is not dyed. People are going to think that it's made out of wool. And if even only the hem is made out of wool, even if it's dragging on the ground, we learned the whole baggage is biblical shotness. In other words, it's the issue of marasayin. It will give the appearance. Yet the Braisa says, but if you have mats and cushions which are used in private, it's used in the privacy of one's home, the Braisa says, then mutar. Clearly, the only difference between the hem of a garment and cushions that you want to maybe put some sort of hem or some sort of border, no different. Only difference is that the economic sauces are used in the privacy of your home. A garment is used everywhere. Clearly, this Braisa doesn't agree with the din of Rab. We hold that anything that's usher because of Marasa'ayin is only problematic if people will look at it. Something that's exclusively used in your bedroom, a pillow, is allowed to have on it something that appears like Kalayim. Braisa number 2, Masnisa, the following Braisa also, Pliga al Rab. We're going mamish different topics. Here the Braisa says, the person was walking by an idol and his coins, his money fell out of his pocket, and they are now scattered in front of the idol. Don't bend down in front of the idol to pick them up. Why? Because it gives the appearance. And says the Braisa, okay, that's only if it's in a public place. Right? In other words, if passerbys will not see you bending down, your intent is only to pick up your coins. Here again, you see that there is no issue. Number 3, Masnisa Pligal Rav, the following Braisa number 3 also is not in consent with Rav. It says in a Braisa, also Beneged, the laws of Avodah Zarah, Partsufais, Shehematilan Mayim Bikrachim, that if you have the Goyim would put in large cities, they would make idols, and out of the mouth of the idols water would be flowing, and that would be as a water fountain, and people that would drink water would have to put their mouths to the mouth of the idol, and their intent was to get everyone to kiss the idol. And there's a residue, there's a remnant of these avodah zarah adayem hazeh, not only in the impure city of Rome, but in other places. You'll notice that there's water flowing, and there's some sort of statue in front of it. But here it's even worse. Here the water was flowing out of the mouth of it. I knew that Kavan found the picture, and here Kavan.
That's so good.
It's from Rome, right? And the Gabbai was there and proud of it. Okay, now, but he didn't.
No one's worshiping those idols.
No, God forbid, God, and we didn't even take the water. So it says but I said loy that loy yitin loy yehi noisen pival piv. Why should loy yehi kim anashik lavay dezara? And here again, the Braisa says v'im hoya makam tzenua, then it's permitted. Clearly not like Rav. Now the fourth contradiction to Rav is coming from a Mishnah in Bavli. That's Chulun Daf Mem Aleph. Masnisa. This is a Mishnah pliga al Rav. I just want to point out that in the Bavli, right, it's easy to know whether we are quoting a Braisa or whether we're quoting a Mishnah. Remember that? So Tanan is a Mishnah. Tanina, if there's an Aleph at the end, it's a Braisa. The only exception is Tanu Rabbanon is Oichet HaBraisa. Tanu Rabbanon is quoting works of Tanoim. Here in the Yerushalmi, you cannot know. They don't use a different word because they expect you and me to know everything. And you'll know when they're making a quote, you have to know where it's coming from. So this is a Mishnah. Masnisa. One can be a Braisa, one can be a Mishnah. Now, what's the Mishnah? That Goyim, they used to have a oivdei avodah zarah, when they would shecht their animals, they would make a little crevice in the ground. They would make a little pit in the ground, so the blood should be gathered in the pit, and then they would eat over the gathered blood, and that was connected to some sort of idolatrous practice. So says the Mishnah that a Yid is not allowed to do that. Ein shoichten in beguma. Why? Because it's a chukay sagoyim. Zok the Mishnah, avol oisuhu guma b'toich beis. So if you're in your home, and in your home, it's very convenient to make a guma in the ground because whoever shechted an animal, not the little goat that we shechted in Edel's backyard that had 4 drops of blood. When you shecht a gezunta, that animal was probably 8 days old. When you shecht an animal that's already in the first
you shechted a lamb, not a goat.
That was a lamb and not a goat. I stand corrected. But it was a nothing burger. But when you shecht an animal, the blood will go all over the place. And you don't want to soil your home. So in your home, the Mishnah says, "Oy, so who goyim betoich beisa b'shvil sheikanes adam betoicha." Elamau bashuk lo yasikein shelo yechake esaminim. Lo yechake esaminim means not to lend any support to the practice of oivdei avodah zarah. Here again, you see that we do differentiate between in private and in public, and not like Rav that says that is also afilu b'chadrei chadar. Now we're going weiter. We're going to another Mishnah, which contradicts Rav. Masnisa pligal Rav. And now we're going to go from good to great. The Mishnah here, now we're going to go to Hilchos Shabbos. Here we're speaking about someone that's walking and it's raining and your clothes became soaked. So first of all, there's an issue of carrying. We learned over there that when you're walking on the road, you are allowed to continue walking. Now, when you come to an enclosed area, an area that's closest to your destination, where it's possible for you to take off your garment, and no one is going to steal it. You don't have to leave it on the road. So even though you didn't reach your home, but you're in the village and you're in the outmost chaser to the Reshus Harabim. So shoichton bechama, you are allowed to spread out your garment in the sun to dry. A couple of things. First of all, don't forget you're not allowed to wring it out because that's the issue of schita. Okay, but okay. Another detail, when we learned it over there, is that you're not allowed to put your garment near fire. Who remembers why? Because the fire might cook the water. You can lay it out in the sun. There's another detail that we spoke out there, is that I'm a Brazilian. In Brazil, the minig is not to have dryers. You have these strings, the way our Zaydas had it over there, the way our Bubba's had it over there, right? Vlad in Russia. Hanging up a garment on a string on Shabbos is asur because it looks like you washed it. That's a Marasayan issue. The Gemara spoke about it over there. What you could do is you can put it in the sun, put it on the ground, put it in the sun. And even that says the Mishnah, Avoloi kineged ha'am. Because even putting it on the ground, people will think you washed your garments on Shabbos. Melabe, which is also. So clearly you see that we differentiate a certain behavior that in public you cannot and in private you could. And now the final one is again Hilchos Shabbos, the laws of Eitzah. Final one is from a Braisa. A couple of details, guys, and Kevin will leave the pictures in a moment. That when a person has waste, today we have plumbing, then they had no plumbing. Pouring waste out with a Reshus Harabim from the Reshus Hayachid, I mean that's an Isur D'Oraisa. There's nothing to talk about. Pouring out your waste in Reshus Hayachid, and it might or not, it might, or it will eventually flow out into the Reshus Harabim. That's something that sometimes you could, sometimes you can't. And it's been a get to that this Braisa is referring to. Masnisa Plegal Rav. So, what does the Braisa say? That if you have a bib, if you have a drainage canal or channel, so if it's kamur arba amas b'reshus harabim, if it's covered at least for the first 4 amas in the reshus harabim, so it's not like when something is pouring out of your private domain, everyone sees right at the exit of your private domain that something is being poured out. And even if it was not direct, however that's defined, the observer, we don't need these pictures yet, the observer won't know that. The observer will think that's a marasayin, that the person poured his waste right at the edge of his private domain, and that's why it's flowing out right in the beginning of the Reshus Harabim. So there's a marasayin issue. But if you're pouring it through some sort of channel, and the channel is covered for at least 4 amas, that already makes it better, even though you have such a cover. Nevertheless, I want to say another detail, that a covered channel is called a makom ptur. A covered channel is a makom ptur, which is even better. Verstehst? So Reshus Hayachid to not even direct, it's indirect, to a makom ptur. A makom ptur to Reshus Harabim. Still, ein shreifchen l'toich hamayim, and ein shreifchen l'toich hamayim is purely an issue of maris ayin, clearly. And who says that? That Asher Ilyo on the left side, 6 lines from the top, ein shreifchen l'toich habib mayim b'Shabbos, because the kivin the chishafach b'gavei. If you pour directly, mikalech behedyam, it right away flows out, and with his koyach of the pour, the Reshus Harabim. Even though you poured it into this makom ptur, the roya will say that shafchan samach liyitziyasi. In other words, even if the channel is covered, you can't pour it right by the edge of your private domain, which is not what you did, but people don't know about. Okay, now we learned in a Braisa that im hoisa mazchela, if there is a gutter running. Now look inside the pictures that Kevin put up. We're speaking here about a maschela is the horizontal gutter, not the vertical one. And what happens over there? What happens over there is since it's horizontal, it's placed by the roof, the picture to the right. And if anything that's coming from all the way up there doesn't rush out into the street, because it's coming from further away, doesn't rush out. In other words, the impact of the water on the ground slows it down. It goes out slowly. The whole issue, like we said from the Rashi earlier, is that the maris ayin, that people will think that you poured it right by the exit of your property, but when the water is not being rushed out, when it's going out slowly, that's the key. There's no maris ayin. That's what the Braisa says. Another thing that
how is this going out slowly?
In other words, no. Kevin, it means that what you have in your yard isn't only waste. There's water. So as long as people in the street, when they see stuff coming out of your property, when it's coming out slowly, there's b'chlal no issue. The issue is only if they're going to suspect that you put it right by the edge. You put it right in there. Another detail, oinas kshamim, that during the rain season, tzinoides mekalchen asurim. Oh, and 1 second. Even during the rain season, it's also mutter. And he's saying over here, what's pshat mutter? That you can pour water on your roof. During the rain season, everything is gushing. So even though there's going to be a gush, since even the rainwater is gushing, again, there's no marasayin issue. However, Tsinoidis Mikalchin came in as the picture to the left. That means when you have these types of drain pipes that they go down vertically, and therefore, what's the problem? The problem is that the water that's going to leave your property when it's coming from such a type of drain pipe goes out quicker. It's all about marasayin is awesome. In other words, clearly there's an issue of marasayin. We're learning daf ayin zayin amud aleph, and so marasayin. Why isn't it asur d'oraisa? Because your channel is a makom ptur. Guys, remember. Eloma, even though it's a makom ptur, if you were to pour it right by the exit, you're not allowed to do that. So it's how quick or how slow the water goes out of this channel once it's 4 amas into the Rishus Harabim. That has to do whether it's asur or mutar marasayin. And on that, Tanu bar kapara, that if this channel opens up in the Rishus Harabim, but in a private little nook or cranny, in a place where people are not there, people are not observing, then it's always mutar. Because be'ikar adin, you're not doing the act of Eitzah. So this is the final work of Atana that clearly doesn't say that kol shuhu asur mepnei marasayin afilu b'chadrei chadarim asur. And indeed, says the Gemara, Elaine pligin al Rav. All of these works of Tanaim argue with Rav. The leis lohain kiyum, and there's no way to reconcile Rav with them. Gavaldik. Okay, moving on. The Mishnah taught you that since the Torah says, we have to move.
With Rav, there's never a difference between, as far as marasayin is concerned, what you do outside and inside. It's exactly the same.
Exactly the same. I want to make it clear. I know when the Ramah says, for example, in those days, that when people would serve almond milk, which wasn't that common, by a chasana. So remember that the halacha is you have to leave a discernible siman that it's almond milk. That's because you resolve the marasayin by everyone seeing where it came from, or you leave it in the container. Correct. And according to Rav, you would not be able to have almond milk at your supper table without a container. That's the pshat. Yeah. And we paskin like Rav. Almond milk is a bad example, just like we just quoted from the Tur, because it's so common nowadays to have almond milk that Adarabba, I'm living in a world in my universe. Whoever mandachar shmei cow's milk, I make a shechiyana by me. It doesn't exist. Maybe goat's milk. That's rotten. Other than that, almond milk, coconut milk, any milk, abanish milk.
In the old days, at the weddings, you had back then it was milk mix. You had to have it in the container.
That's the din. That's the Ramos says it. Exactly. Okay, right. So here we go. Silbash. Not only silbash, we're talking about shatness, but also loyala olecha. Loyala olecha chazal were medayik that you can have shatness under you. So therefore, if you have a mat or a cushion, even though it's made out of both wool and linen, you can rest on them. But the Mishnah says, as long as your skin does not touch them. So now we're going to get a lot of limitations, a lot of qualifications to this leniency. Daf Ayin Zayin 7783. Hadad Tamar. When do we say that I can step on karamuk sasois? Not with my shoes. Because it's under me, the shatness, that's only berekon. Berekon means that it's not fluffy, not puffy. Empty means it's very strong. It's very hard. What's the difference between fluffy or not fluffy? Think about it. When you step onto something that has depth and it's soft, so it ends up going around you, right? If you step into this juicy carpet, the carpet is not only under your feet, it wraps around your feet. That's already olecha.
A Tempur-Pedic mattress.
Tempur-Pedic. Here we go. Avo b'mole, that's mole. If the matter cushion is filled, they used to fill it with they used to stuff it with feathers. However, it worked then. Today with foam that they tell you has a memory. Avo b'mole is asur because even though your skin is not touching it, now daf ayin zayin amud beis, another qualification to the Mishnah benosan al gabe mis tavon. That when are you allowed, forget about just the item of shatness itself being flat and not fluffy. Let's say it's flat, but let's say it's not on the ground. Let's say the flat, hard carpet, I would say you use the word carpet, is on a bench. So not the carpet will go around the sides of your feet because it's not puffy, and not the bench. Avul b'nasan al gabi hamita. the beds were soft then. That's why everyone was hunchback. That's why they convinced you, and they give you this hard mattress that you can't sleep with. It's good. So here, if you put it on the soft bed, then even if the mat, which is shatnez, is flat, doesn't matter when you'll step on it. The softness of the bed will rise to the sides, and it's going to help the shatnez wrap around your feet. The kid said there's a lot of qualifications to this halacha. But Poel Mamish, we say that if I have an item of shatnez, we have it clear, even if there are 10 mattresses, and that's the lotion of the Tana, and the 10th one is shatnez, I'm not allowed to lay on the top. And from there, the goyim have something with 10 mattresses. I don't know about what, but they took it from us. Okay, weiter. That Mamish, you see how they ganda everything from us. Now, now this is a very important case. You're walking down the street, and like in LA, I know exactly. In Alta Vista, I know where you're giving your garments for shatnez. And Stam Lahoyer, that whoever's learning with us, that I know a manufacturer of garments that were very expensive, and he gifted me a psasut that they told me retailed $4,000, not 2025, in 2020. Today it would be worth like a big hush, and he made it. And he told me it's only wool, and he understands shatnez, only wool. And he ended up giving me 4 suits. And for some reason, I decided late that I should give it in. I always give it my stuff. And here you have the nice, instead of the Hugo Boss, I have the shatnez logo in my suits. And had shatnez, like I said, in the collars.
Removable.
All removable, yeah. But before you remove it, that's mama shatnez doiraisa. What can I do? I was wearing shatnez before I didn't give it in. In other words, a person can think they're not wearing shatnez, and you never know. And these people, I don't know how they do it. It's a big secret. I wore shatnez at everybody. And okay, let's not get this. This is not a communal confession over here. So you imagine you're walking down the street. Could be. So imagine someone check a Hugo Boss, and they find their chaver on the street. The jacket, mela. What about the pants? In LA, it also there's no shanda. I'm talking about in then when people used to dress in bashuk. So hoya mahalach bashuk benim salavish kalayim. Now you have a machlokes. Today I'm writing. Chadamar asur. Asur means that since you're not allowed to wear it, you have to immediately disrobe yourself on the street. V'chad na'amar no. Mutter means that until when you come to a private place, you can still wear that shatnez. Now,
Rabbi, question, Rabbi.
Wait. No, we can't stop in the middle. Clarifies the Gemara that man the amar asur. There's no argument. When do you have to disrobe in public? That's when shatnez is biblical shatnez. You have bona fide wool and linen. And I know we're only Daf Ayin Zayin, but soon on Daf Pei Gimel, which is really halacha hey, we're going to learn in a Mishnah. There are certain types of wool and linen that are shatnez midrabanan. We didn't get there yet. Who says you can wear it only for shatnez midrabanan? Man, the Amar Muter is kahahi, the Amar Abzaeda. Now, we're not minimizing, God forbid, rabbinic law, but we are saying all of rabbinic law, all of the Rabbanan are included in a pasuk and Pasha Shoftim, both in the positive and in the negative. Loy sasur. Don't deviate from what the Chachamim say. Even if they say what's left is right and what's right is left, they do that a lot. Don't deviate. That's a lav d'oraisa, but it's a general lav. So Rabbi Zeira says that Godel kavod harabim. I love the lashon kavod harabim because our guide is Godel kavod habriyas. Kavod habriyas means, think about it. If I'm wearing rabbinic shatnez and I disrobe myself, so there's 2 issues. Issue number 1 is that it hurts my dignity. It's a dishonor to me. I'm going without bigadim in the public. But then there's another issue that it's uncomfortable for the rabbim to look at this guy that's walking without garments. It's like some people, for some reason, they get uncomfortable when they see the homeless. Like, what do you care? Bothers them. So the question is, what is the heter? Because of the individual shame or because of the public shame? That depends on these 2 gersois.
People that are very sensitive would be upset with the homeless person's own feelings. So that's covered up rias. You know what I mean? Like,
but no, but it's not. No, but the point is that if the girsa is Godel Kavod Harabim, the only reason why we're mated is because it's not the individual, because it's a rabbim's anguish, or in the positive. You want to give honor to the rabbim.
Rabbi, if you see someone walking and carrying a Shabbat, and you know the Eruv is down, and she or he do not. Isn't it the halacha that you don't tell them till they get to their destination?
That's exactly what. So it will depend. So let me tell you like this: that if the violation is biblical, you're obligated to tell them. There's another wrinkle, and that is that Chazal say that mutav shiyu shoygin ba'al yu mezidin, and we learned to Tosfos. We learned this together. That's only on midrabanan. On a doiraisa, you never say mutav shiyu shoygin. Same thing. So very good, Kevin. You can argue. Yeah. But even if they're not going to listen, there's a time that you have to properly let them know what the din is. Kevin, one can argue that when the Eruv is down, which is very rare, that if the Eruv is down and you become aware of it, that if there is an issue, the issue was only a derabanan. That it's a cardinalist. I'm not going to get into it right now. And based on that, I would say what you're saying.
So Kavod Rabbi means if you're in a private, relatively area, it's not that
clear. It's only you. I would even say more. If I'm wearing shatnez and I'm in a private and no one is there, I would take it off. What do I care? In other words, not only is there not a kavod rabim issue, there's not a kavod abrius. No one is there. Maybe not. Everyone is more sensitive differently. Let's go weiter. It depends at what age your father took you to the mikveh. That's where it begins. Mamish. Godel kavod rabim, and that's important. Shu doiche es ha-mitzvah v'loisa sesha achas. Now, guys, this is the key. Because many people know they don't remember that Rabbi Zajac said it, but when they quote that kavod abrius is doicha es loisa said, look inside the Mara folder. This is not just the Mara folder, but let's look inside. God kavod habrius. First of all, he has a different nusa. God kavod habrius. It will be kalaim the rabbanon. And what's the loisa say? Hainu lav the loisasur. He tiro loisha achas boichu bashuk. And b'hoika Michael and Mebrachas and Babli Daf Yitesam and Beis that this, first of all, he has kavod habrios, not kavod harabim. And again, I think I might be wrong, Danny. I think kavod habrios means my own dignity, even though it's also b'lashon rabim. You can debate that, and it's only by the rabbanon. Now let's go weiter. Tony, we learned in a braysa. Ein medagdikin b'meis v'loy b'kalayim b'beis hamedrash. Let's go with the way you're learning. We're speaking about either there's a tumas meis midrabanan. I'm not going to get into slate, and kalayim derabanan. That's what we're learning about. So you have a person learning Torah, and he's a kohen, right? And you're going to inform the kohen that there's tumas meis midrabanan. They're going to run out of the Beis Hamedrash, and they're going to stop learning Torah. So the braysa says, "Ein medagdikin b'meis." Nor, same thing with kalayim. If someone is being told that he's wearing kalayim and he's learning, so this is not about dignity. Aside of the dignity, bittul Torah. We are equating bittul Torah with kavod habrios. We are equating it. That if the problem is of rabbinic nature, we rather you learn. Now, the word ein medagdek, it doesn't just mean we would rather you learn. I take it back. It means you don't have to say either or. You have an option. You can do it. You can do anything you want. Look inside the Mara full, the 5 lines from the top. And again, we're speaking rabbinic. There's a rabbinic issue. You don't have to. Similarly, again, now the Gemara says a story that Rabbi Yossi have a Yosef Masnei. Rabbi Yossi was the teacher, and V'hava Tamon Miso. He gave such a big share, people died from pleasure. I don't know, someone passed away. But it was a case, without getting into details, we know that Tumas oil, that the connection between where the mace was and where the room was only a rabbinic connection. One simple case will be that way. So, and now people knew about it. It wasn't about notifying. Some of the Kahanim left, some of the Kahanim stayed. And Rabbi Yossi said, Min the one who left, Rabbi Yossi didn't say anything. In other words, it's not that you have to learn. You get to pick and choose. So the Kahanim that left, they were not wrong. Min the the ones who chose to stay, also Rabbi Yossi le'omer le'klum. Ahead of him, any way is good. He did not protest either group. This is a very big deal. In other words, it's not that it has to be one way. It doesn't have to be one way, but you have the option of sitting and learning. Weiter, Rabbi Imi, Rabbi Yosef Masnei, Rabbi Imi was teaching. Omar Chad Lechavre, one Talmud told the other, at lavish kilayim. So Amalei Rabbi Imi, Ravimi told the one who notified the colleague that he was wearing kalayim, Shlach monach b'yavle. He's wearing kalayim. You want him to leave? Why don't you take off your garments and you give it to him? In other words, I don't think, why don't you? He told him to do that. You didn't have to tell him. You're making him feel like he can't learn. Take off your garments and give it to your fellow. So your fellow can keep on learning and you leave the Beis HaMedrash. Okay. Weiter. The Mishnah says, Ein aray l'kalayim. Tani, we learned in the Brais. Now we're going to go me'inyan le'inyan. We're going to go now, as we learned in the Mishnah, that in the Holy Temple, actually, the Kohen Gadol certainly wore shatnez. Machlokes, whether the Kohen Hedyot had shatnez in its belt. We pointed out the diuk that it sounds like our Mishnah is of the opinion that even the Kohen Hedyot has kalayim in his belt, because the Mishnah says that the only two fibers in the temple was semeru pishtim, when really, if we are including the Kohen Gadol, there's also gold. Gold is considered a fiber. You can argue the Mishnah doesn't subscribe to that, but it's considered the fiber. The Torah calls it a fiber, threads of gold, golden threads. And Kohen Hedyot, according to those Amoraim that hold that the avneit of the Kohen Hedyot only was made out of linen. So if we're only speaking about the Kohen Hedyot, then how can the Mishnah say that the garments of the Kohanim had semeru pishtin when they only had pishtin? Okay, so let's go with that. Now says the Gemara. We learned in Abrais. Ein arei b'kalayim bebeis hamikdash. Now this is very important. Again, we're going that whether it's the Kohen Hedyot who wore shatnez, certainly the Kohen Gadol wore shatnez. He wore garments, some of his garments, like we said, the choshen, the ephod, and the avneit of the Kohen Gadol, vadai, had in it a mixture of wool and linen plus. So the question is, can they wear those garments when they're not doing the avodah? Now, there's a big machlokes between the Rambam and the Ravid, and let's review it here. Let's review it here in the Marafulda. We're in the middle of the Marafulda. Ein aray b'kalayim bebeis hamikdash. This is quoting a Braisa. He said like this: Ein aray b'kalayim shaligdeim kolayim big day kohuna shalahem. Let's go that every kohen wore he wore shatnez, and they are allowed to do a mitzvah. They have to wear. Af al pishu hutru b'shas avodah. They are permitted to wear it when they're doing the avodah. Umutar kalayim legabayu b'mikdash. Well, while they are in the temple. Afilu hacha. Nevertheless, even for them, amrim nami ein arei lekalayim etzlam. If they're not doing the avodah, even though they're wearing it temporarily, it's asur. Hold on. Now ulah Ravid zal. And where does the Ravid argue with the Rambam in the Yad HaChazokim? Kalayim pedikut Allah Chalamed Beis the Sfira lei. The afilu shalei b'shas avodah mutarim heim b'kalayim shel bigdayim. The Ravid says that even when they're not doing the avodah, the heter for the kahanim is not avodah. It's while they are in their temple. Anytime you're in the temple, you can wear kalayim. And as we explained al pi Chasidus yesterday, that chesed gevura, that's the issue. Wool is chesed, linen is gevura. And in the Beis HaMikdash, because of the revelation of godliness of the level, let's say of ein oid molvadoi, that nothing had an existence there. So there's no chesed, there's no gevura. It's completely bottled to God. If there's no chesed and no gevura, then there's no issue. And that was a kedusha not connected to the avodah, according to the Ravid. That was always in the holy temple area. You're in that space. You're in a holy space. And therefore, when the Braisa says that ein aray b'kalayim bebeis hamikdash, says the Marafud, according to the Ravid, it means if they want to walk out. This is important. A kohen can walk out of the Beis HaMikdash. The question is, does he have to disrobe, put on his big dechoil, go out, come back in? So that is what the Braisa is saying. Even if he wants to run out for a moment.
You want to visit Ido while he's serving, you can come out, say hello, go back in.
No, Ido, we're going to visit Ido. Ido's not coming to visit us.
I understand, but we can't go in. If not go in, whatever.
Yeah,
he can come out and visit us.
But okay. So that's the pshat. So that's the big machlokes. So the point is that according to the Rambam, who holds that the heter of a kohen wearing kalayim is only b'shas avodah, the Braisa is even easier to understand. That shaloi b'shas avodah, he has to remove his belt. We daven with a gartel. You go to the restroom, you remove your belt. You leave davening, you remove your belt.
Well, I thought that the shatnez was only permitted in the Holy of Holies.
No, the opposite, Kevin. In the Holy of Holies, the Kohen Gadol, only wore linen. That was the pasuk we quoted yesterday.
Oh, because
only
of the
linen.
Gevura and Chesed. Okay, got it.
That's something else. That's something else, because don't forget, Kevan, that the Kohen Gadol's garment had gold. That was the issue. It didn't only have wool and linen, and gold is a reminder of the Chato Egel. Ein Chategad Nasa Sanegad. Okay. Now, Tani, hold on. Fred, we learned in the Braisa, Kohen Shiyotz L'Daberim Chaveiro, if a Kohen goes out of the holy Beis Hamikdash, the Chapa Shmuz. So here we go. If the conversation was very long, however you define very long, that's Gavaldik to leave it open. So don't forget, guys, there's a rule. Whenever a Kohen goes from wearing his personal garments to wearing the garments of holy, he has to go to the mikvah. Remember that. Here, obviously, we're not speaking about the Kohen changing garments. We're speaking about a Kohen that went with his garments to speak to his fellow. Now the question is, when he goes back to do the avodah, it's either or. Either all he has to do is sanctify his hands and his feet, or he has to also go to the mikvah. So the Braisa says like this: if the shmuz was very long, then you have to do tefillah. If they had a short conversation, however that's defined, then all you need is kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. And now that's the bomb question. What's the bomb question? We just said that he's wearing shatnez, and he can't even wear it temporarily, which means that if he's going to chapa shmuz with his friend, that's not avodah. He has to put on his own garments. Every time he puts on his garments, and then he puts on the garments of the Beis Hamikdash, he needs to have a mikvah, tefillah. How can the Braisa says, Gavaldik approved, how can the Braisa say, L'shah, ton kiddush yadayim v'raglayim? Now that we established he can't wear the garments, that means he disrobed. And now he's putting it back on. If he's putting it back on, you got a problem. Answers the Gemara that Kan the big day Zav. Big day Zav. It's the point is not Zav, Kevin. The point of Zav is that if the Kohen Gadol always will have to take off his garments, because no one can wear their garments that has shatnez even for a moment. For him to chapa shmuz with his friend, that's not avodah. Of course, the Kohen Gadol will always have to go to the mikvah after he puts the big day Zav back on. Where do we learn in the Braisa that we make this differentiation, whether it was for a long time or for a short time, was for big day love? The big day love, let's go that the Kohen had kalaim in the avnei. The moment he finishes the avodah, he takes off his belt, but he's wearing 3 linen garments. Now he's allowed to chapa shmuz, and that's what the Braisa. And he can talk to his friend. They're not malach. And when he talks to his friend, the question is, you just got distracted from the avodah. Minimally kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. But if the shmuz was long, however that's defined, then you have to do